Podcast, The Rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine. Neon dreams in the digital stream. Lights flash to the sound, surreal extreme. Feel it. In the heart of Vegas, we're living the scene. Go live, we're all on the beam. Watch it, feel it. On live stream, the pulse, it races. Pounds, high stakes, wild chases. We're the stories, we're the faces. In the city, where the bright lights gleam, we're on, we're on. Go live Vegas, the digital dream. As the crowd dives into the stream.
We just need to forget about everything. Put away our problems. Get along with each other.
All right, off and running on a Friday. Welcome back into the Go Live Vegas studio, everybody, for another edition of Studio of the Game. Brett Lawson here, and we are ready to go. So much so, we were so excited we forgot to open up the mics. But it's all good because my man Aaron has been a busy bee these last couple of weeks since the last time you saw me for our Super Bowl recap show. And we have so many different moving parts in the works here in the Go Live Vegas family. We are excited to bring them all to you here in the next couple of weeks. If you're noticing right now, and if you're tuning in that way, we are officially off and running on our brand new Go Live Vegas video app. You can check it out right here. Well, not right here, but in fact, go check it out for yourself. But I'm actually just watching on Aaron's phone to see for myself because this is the very first time I come in the studio. He tells me we're going to pretty much launch the app of your show, and I'm absolutely jazzed. So go ahead. You could download it, check it out any way you want. It's available on Android. It's going to be available on iPhone through Apple. We're going to have, a new version of it coming out in the next few days, so you'll be ready to go. But all of our video feeds, our live streams, our recorded podcasts, everything in between, all consolidated and available on this awesome Go Live Vegas video app. We have content. We have profiles. We'll have original content exclusive to different personalities. We have a tab dedicated to the weather. We, again, have 24/7 streaming. We have so many moving parts both with this app and things related outside of the app that we're going to be sharing with you here in the next couple of weeks. So we just wanted to kind of get that off our chest, rip the band-aids, because Aaron has been a busy man, and you may even notice we have a new logo for Go Live Vegas. We're changing up our branding a bit. But again, all the things that are oh so familiar to you and that are oh so simple and accessible to all of us in the Go Live Vegas family, that will continue. And apps like this are only going to make it that much easier. But again, I'm so happy to be with you guys here on a Friday. Obviously, last time I was with you, we were recapping the Super Bowl, which is probably the easiest show in the year. I mean, that's the easiest day to host a sports talk show in the media, period. But once that dissipates, and once the dust settles, the smoke clears, and you kind of step out into mid to late February, you realize, all right, we have the dormant period. We have the time of year where things kind of settle down a bit. Now in 2026, bit of an exception because we have the Olympics. And we have a lot of Olympic coverage to tune into, a lot of storylines. We'll touch on those in a bit. Men's hockey just had a phenomenal, dominant win over Slovakia, 6-1. And, of course, yesterday with Hillary Knight and company, the U.S. women's capturing their first gold since Pyeongchang in 2018, and an absolute thriller over Canada that went into overtime. So in 2026, it's a little bit easier to find some content, to find some talking points for shows like this at this time of year. But interestingly enough, and I touched on this a few weeks ago on the Super Bowl preview show when I had Kel Dansby join me, we are at a point now in the NBA, forget about the NBA season, but in the NBA timeline, to where now the shortcomings, the issues, and the ongoing problems that are plaguing the NBA have now become a storyline in itself. And that's saying a lot, because it wasn't even a full week ago where we were having the All-Star game or the All-Star weekend festivities to deal with. And then in the immediate aftermath of that, last Sunday, Monday morning, on all the talk shows, all the media personalities, all the analysts, all the hosts, everyone in between, talking about how that All-Star game format with the round robin, 3 teams, stars, stripes, and a world team was a nice improvement. It was a nice tweaking to something that was on its dying breath, on its last leg. But at the same time, here we are not even a week later, and now that's old news. And it reverts right back to what Kel and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago, that the NBA has so many roadblocks ahead of it right now that the biggest storyline they are collectively as a league facing is how to overcome those shortcomings. It is not about what happened in the All-Star game with stars, stripes, and Team World, despite it being a good format, despite it being an improvement. None of that matters anymore. It's not about anything on the other side of the All-Star break as it pertains to who's going to win MVP, as it pertains to who's going to be the favorites, as it pertains to who's really positioning themselves to make a run. Because every year during this time, whether it's legitimate or not, we try to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find that type of stuff to talk about. Again, especially if it's a year when there's no Olympic coverage, because we are desperate for content at this time of year. Football, we're in the off season, but we're not quite deep enough into February or early March to where you could really turn the page in the draft. The draft nerds will, like myself, the diehards, the hardcores, but the casual fan isn't doing that yet. And the casual fan right now is looking forward to NBA basketball, March Madness, and baseball. Baseball's right in front of our faces. We'll talk about more about that as we get closer. But I want to put the spotlight on the NBA, because if you have followed any type of media coverage, any type of sports talk programming over the course of the last 5 days or so, but more so just the entire last couple of NBA regular seasons, right? The last couple of campaigns they've had, the reoccurring issue of tanking got so bad it almost became self-parody. But now it has become so apparent and so much at the forefront and so inevitable that now it is the main storyline. So much so to where Commissioner Adam Silver has made that the crux of the offseason as far as what they're going to address. He has made the tanking issue something that has been talked about on shows like this and all across the media landscape for a long time now. He is making that the focal point to address in the offseason, because even he now knows that something must be done if you want to get back public interest. Because the NBA, as I talked with Kel and as I've talked with several others on and off air, the NBA is struggling right now as a television product. And there are multiple reasons for that. It's not like it's just because of the tanking. And there are variables at play here that you could analyze till you're blue in the face. But the tanking is the umbrella of it all. Now, the problem is, right, people in my position hosting shows like this, we're going to get up here and wax poetic about what the best measure is to take to avoid that moving forward. And let's be real, there is no clear-cut answer. It's kind of a lose-lose because tanking is understandable, as unfortunate as it is, given the layout of the NBA and how you can actually compete. It's different than it is in NFL with the cap, and it's different in baseball than it is with no cap, right? But the biggest difference that basketball finds itself in is that, and they're not the only, look at, they have 82 games. There are other sports that have longer seasons. But what the trap that basketball finds themselves in is that they are not maximizing those 82 games in the regular season to increase the television product. Baseball proved last year they can do that with their schedule. Hockey's a niche fan base anyway. Hockey's not going to affect the mainstream the same way the NBA does, no matter how good it may be, no matter how much you love hockey. This is the time of year where people want to be able to latch on a basketball with the absence of football and have something they could watch week by week, night by night, whether or not they're a diehard fan. But now we're at the case where the product for some teams, a lot of teams at that, has become unwatchable. And now the question is, what exactly does Adam Silver do to mitigate that? And then the follow-up question is he even capable? Because you've heard a lot of podcasters, you've heard a lot of hosts, you've heard a lot of people just get on air and say, recently, you know what? Maybe we looked a gift horse in the mouth during that David Stern tenure. And that was a long tenure. And no one impacted in terms of the business of the league, in terms of people off the court anyway. No one has ever impacted the NBA more than David Stern in that capacity. You can make the case that no commissioner, no executive, no higher power has ever impacted a given league the way David Stern was able to do so throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, and throughout the 2000s. Yes, of course, he had help. That's why I emphasized the off-the-court aspect. You still needed Magic. You still needed Bird. You still needed Jordan. You still needed Kobe. You still needed LeBron, so on and so forth. But what Stern did, and the way he put his foot down for certain things and refused to budge for certain things, I think a lot of people in the NBA community, media, fans, people directly immersed in the world of basketball, I think they're clamoring for that because I think there is a bit of a lack of trust regarding Adam Silver and if he will able to effectively fix this. Now, again, there's no way to completely get rid of it. It's just inevitable. Right? Especially in the NBA where it's very much set up for you to tank for your benefit. So the biggest thing would be restructuring the entire system, the entire entity, if you will, to ensure that that is not the case moving forward. Easier said than done. This is not going to be a rip the Band-Aid overnight type of fix. Not at all. This is going to take quite some time, the same way the problem has become more apparent for quite some time. But if I will say this, if there is one thing, or at least one place you can start in terms of trying to fix this issue, it's shaving off some of the games. And yes, some may say it's not feasible. Some may say it's not logical. Some may say they're going to take a hit and not make enough money with the revenue. You are going to help yourself by making a healthier league, and that is the issue. These players are playing so hard night in and night out when they actually are out there exerting the effort that it's going to be hard for them to do that night in and night out continuously. Now, the conundrum there is you could say, yes, but they're professional athletes. We have all these people in our arenas paying their hard-earned money to get tickets to come in to watch these athletes, and that is fair. You want the best in the world out there doing what they do like no one else can. But in order to do that effectively from the start of the season to the end of the regular season, you need to shorten the regular season. And I'm not saying you need to go to 60 games, no, but you got to shave it down from 82. You got to cut off 10 to 12 games just to make this a little easier for yourself, for your talent, and for teams to truly believe, like for one, they have a shot and that tanking is not the necessary measure to take. But even more so for the contenders, now you actually have a clear-cut picture of what these teams look like in February, in March. Now you have an idea of what the playoff picture is going to look like. You have a better idea of MVP. You have less debates and less controversies about players resting and load management, because everyone wants to say these players are divas and everyone wants to say these players are softer than they used to be. That's another thing I've talked about with Kel. The NBA media coverage sometimes is so old school, so based in tradition. I've said this for years. Basketball culture can't get out of its own way because they're too caught up on the past. And sometimes football culture can't get out of its own way because it's not concerned enough with the past. Football is so cyclical. We're always impressed with the new shiny toy. We tend to forget about what transpired years ago to get us to this point in the evolution, right? Football, we always want to focus on the trends, the here and the now. Basketball, we try to avoid that. So much so the only trends we talk about the league in terms of a collective conversation are the three-point shooting, which is an immediate result of the Golden State Warriors and the impact they have had on the game, and the drastic evolution as a result of Steph Curry and the three ball and everything they've been able to do. But the problem is that's diminished much of the game because of the way it once was played inside out, then it goes outside in, and now everyone's very much confused about what is the actual genetic fiber, right? What is the DNA of modern-day NBA basketball? It can't be just this shoot-around, because the problem is when everyone tries to be the Warriors, you quickly remember that, oh, that's right, they were the Golden State Warriors for a reason. You are all not. So that doesn't help. The stylistic elements do not help. But at the same time, you will at least help yourself out with the load management, with the tanking, and with the availability of these players down the stretch in terms of getting them out there on television in front of the live crowd. This will help you simply because you will increase health, and by increasing health, you increase availability. That is what the issue is right now, especially when you get to this time of year on the other side of the All-Star break. And I know because of that, you alter the NBA All-Star weekend, then the All-Star game festivities, and you tweak the format to make it a bit more interesting. You try to add this midseason NBA Cup that isn't terrible, but does nothing to help you. Everything Adam Silver and the NBA have put forth doesn't necessarily hurt the league, but it's doing nothing to fix the apparent problems they already have. And to me, that again is the crux of it all. And shout out to Silver for addressing the fact that he plans to make that the key issue the key focus moving forward. And I'm getting, what's this, Aaron? Help me out here. Breaking news of where? Oh, I got you. I say that's how you know he's a hockey fan right there. Next time, just pass it up on the screen. I mentioned that at the top of the show. Well, that's because, sometimes those push notification people are just a bunch of lazy SOBs. That's how you know my guys is jacked up. He's jazzed. He's hyped. He's ready. But again, we'll talk about the Olympic hockey here in just a moment. Don't worry. But ultimately, that's where we are right now in the NBA. I talked about a year ago. I was doing a convention. Aaron, you may remember this. We were on a stage out at the Ahern Hotel and Convention Center out here doing the Las Vegas Diecast Super Convention, which we will be doing again this year. Make sure to catch full coverage of that on the Go Live Vegas app and all of our social media and digital platforms. We'll reveal more information about that as we get closer. But I remember we were doing a live podcast of a show that I hosted with a friend of ours. And we were immediately talking about last year at this time how baseball, with that on the horizon for the 2025 season, baseball is positioning itself to overtake the NBA as far as the number 2 in terms of the television hierarchy, the general interest or the general appeal, public interest hierarchy. And it's kind of like a top 10 countdown with music, right? Like if you're not the Beatles or Michael Jackson, you kind of view yourself as number 1 because 1A or maybe 2 because everyone's going to fall behind those type of artists. It's kind of the same thing here. If you are number 2 in the television hierarchy on the American sports front, you kind of are a de facto number 1 because the NFL is a completely different conversation. The NFL is such a big entertainment brand on its own. The NFL owns a day. The NFL is bigger to a lot of people in this country than churches, right? Like the NFL could not be further away from that conversation because it is truly a transcendent brand. So if you separate the NFL, and if you're just talking professional sports, because if you're talking all sports, college football has a strong claim to be number 1. But the debate for that number 1 outside of the NFL it's interesting right now because exactly a year ago, I pondered the thought, could baseball overtake the NBA in terms of a television product and general interest across the board? And as you have seen the results, the ratings, the numbers across all television networks, traditional broadcast networks, cable networks, digital streaming, baseball coverage had a year in 2025, so much so to where they can take a proper bow because everything that baseball needed to go right in 2025 did, and because of that, everything is surging. Now, in typical Major League Baseball fashion, they may take a huge step backward after taking those steps forward because we have talks about, will there be a cap? Will there be a lockout? Are the Dodgers ruining baseball? We've talked about that on this very show, and we will continue to talk about that because that's going to be an ongoing narrative and a reoccurring theme throughout 2026. But one thing we could also say is an ongoing theme and a reoccurring narrative is that baseball is heading into its regular season here in just over a month as the clear-cut number 2 behind the NFL in public interest. And for a while, given how the NBA was looking throughout the 90s and the 2000s, even the early 2010s, and given all the problems baseball was having, it looked like there would be no shot, or at least a snowball's chance in hell, that would ever happen and that dynamic would flip. But that's glaring. Again, a lot of it is a testament to what baseball has done correctly, but a lot of it is also a reflection of what the NBA is not doing correctly. And the first thing they have to do is shave some of those games off. And I get it. A lot of people are going to say there's no way they do that. They're not going to take the hit. They need the games. They need the revenue. But guess what? We're also in a position where the NBA is considered expansion. I personally think it should be relocation. I think there's markets out there that don't deserve an NBA team and really don't even want an NBA team. They're just kind of saddled with one. I think Vegas, for example, would thrive with an NBA program or an NBA organization out here in our market. But I don't think it needs to be an expansion team. I think relocation, if anything, is the proper step to take. But again, they're so desperate to increase revenue, and they're so desperate to get that traction back that they once had. Nothing would surprise me. So part of me fears that maybe they do take the baseball approach and mess it up for themselves even worse. But the difference is baseball has taken major steps forward, and the NBA is not doing that. And until they figure out how to exactly and properly manage the longevity of the regular season, I don't know if there is an appropriate answer. The tanking, again, itself, that is going to take a while. And you are never effectively going to eradicate that, at least across the board, universally. No shot. But you can fix some of the problems because we know tanking has been an issue in the NBA for quite some time. But in the immediate 2 weeks of the Super Bowl aftermath, very rarely has it been the main talking point on all of the different media platforms, on all of the different networks and outlets like it is right now. And that's the reason why I'm leading this very show here on a Friday afternoon in front of you all, again, on our brandly, newly launched Go Live Vegas app. But I had to open the show with that because if you're in the sports media right now, where else do you begin? And I know, again, it seems like piling on, like I talked about with Kel. Every little bit of commentary, every little bit of opinion or conversation surrounding the NBA seems like it's skewing negative. But that's because the NBA doesn't have the identity that it needs to block that out. No sports organization or sports league is perfect. The NFL is littered with issues, but the NFL does what it does well, so well that those issues will never be the lead. They will never be the main bullet point in the conversation. Just like the NBA still does some stuff pretty well. The NBA can be so accessible. The NBA can be so easy to travel all around the world and increase your brand. The NBA, it's almost overnight. Logistically, you could plan some type of event or some type of live game, and it could work far easier than football can. There are certain things that the NBA could do way better than the NFL does, but they don't know what to do. They don't have it figured out like Roger Goodell and the Shield do. And say what you want about Rob Manfred in baseball. In the grand scheme of things, no, maybe they don't have the issue regarding the cap debate figured out or the deferred payments figured out, but look at all the problems that people are complaining about. Game too slow, right? Boring to watch on television. You don't have the young demographic. Baseball this past year, check, check, check. Because every one of those categories, if you will, or every one of those measurables, everything is trending upwards. In basketball, it is going in the opposite direction. And I don't want that to be the case, because I miss the years of when you could pivot from the NFL when the Super Bowl concludes and you go right in the NBA and it's like you're neck deep in 3 days and you're like, man, this is awesome. The All-Star game is here. The All-Star game was never going to be good. No sports All-Star game is going to be good. But that's okay, because you knew that once the All-Star game break was here, things were going to start picking up. Even baseball. Baseball probably has the best of the bunch. It's still not that great. It was good last year. We'll see if that continues. It was a lot of fun, especially with the way it ended with Kyle Schwarber. But at the same time, the fun of the All-Star game is knowing that things are about to pick up, that business is about to pick up after the dust settles of that All-Star game. You used to have that feeling in the NBA, and now, if anything, it's the opposite. It feels like people are more excited in November and Christmas time than they are in February and March, and that should not be the case. So you've seen the evolution in gameplay with the 3-ball. You have seen the league become more progressive in certain areas where other leagues are more conservative by comparison. A few years ago, it seemed to work to their benefit, right? Social media, the way it's covered, the way we view players on a first-name basis, the way we are immediately able to recognize them and their marketability through just looking them, like just knowing what their face expressions look like, right? Like football, it's different. We don't call people or address people by their first name in football or baseball or even hockey the way we do in the NBA. The NBA, initials and nicknames and acronyms and saying the first name but excluding the last name. That's been the norm for quite some time, because the NBA has done a very good job of breaking down that barrier and connecting the fan base and the talent and the players, the stars. Now we're seeing that gap grow with each passing year. And that's why it's worrisome. That's why it's troubling. Because yes, come NBA playoffs, I'm still going to watch. I still am looking forward to seeing all the young stars of the game. I still like watching Jokic, who's the best player in basketball. Wembanyama, who's the best young player in basketball. I want to see if the OKC Thunder can go back-to-back. I'm going to be intrigued and invested in the storylines inevitably. But that's because I'm a sportscaster. I'm supposed to. And I'm a diehard fan. But I'm not going to expect everyone to have that mentality. And it's time for the NBA to realize that it's that demographic. That's who they need to get back, because that's who made them the clear-cut number 2 for so long. And again, in a world with American professional football, if you're the number 2, you're sitting pretty high and mighty. And I want to see the NBA get back to that. Not to the sense I want to see them retake the spot from baseball, but I want to live in a, quote-unquote sports universe, a sports reality where all 3 of those leagues are operating the way they should. Not in the sense that we're going to compare them, because you shouldn't. They very much are apples and oranges in terms of the business model, in terms of the structure of it all, and in terms of the gameplay itself, because the sports are just so drastically different. But there are certain things that all great television products have, and it's continuity. Outside of Seinfeld or occasional sitcom, think about every television show you've ever watched, a drama, whether it be on cable, streaming, traditional network TV, dramas, romances, historical, docuseries or miniseries, right? Sci-fi series, fantasy series, whatever it may be, anthology series. Like, you want continuity because it makes for a better television experience. It makes for a better viewing and a better collective immersion of it all for the audience. And that's what the NFL does so well. That's what baseball is starting to improve on, and that's what basketball is falling behind on the wayside in dramatic fashion. And until they fix that, and again, the tanking is going to be, a multiple pronged plan, no doubt about it. So I'm not going to say fix tanking, your problems are done, because you can't just fix tanking overnight. But you have to absolutely prioritize the regular season and eliminate the fluff. And a lot of that fluff is coming in the form of an extra 10 to 12 games. It's a good starting point. Again, easier said than done. I'm just a talking head sitting here waxing poetic about it. Adam Silver and the brass, they're the ones who are going to have to do it. But again, it'd be a pretty damn good starting point. And a good starting point for y'all as we segue into a break. I mean, this one's actually really forced. If the app wasn't unveiled, I probably would have said, all right, time for a break. But I'm going to force a segue anyway to continue to promote this awesome Go Live Vegas video app. So again, if you're watching us on all of your typical social media platforms, our YouTube page, any digital feed, you can watch us the same way here. Anytime we go live with a show, notifications will chime off. If you miss a show, all archived episodes will be available. We have profiles for all our hosts, all our on-air personalities, different things regarding the Go Live Vegas brand and the Go Live Vegas family. So be sure to check out this app. It's available now through Android and Apple. We're going to have the final version launching here in just a couple of days. So we're really excited. As you can tell, Aaron's so giddy he can't even stay in his seat. But don't worry, because as excited as we are to talk about the app, we are also excited to talk about the NFL offseason. As much as I could talk about, the state of the union or the state of the NBA as it enters, its back half, we could really just go on and on about the NFL offseason, because if there's one thing about the NFL, even when the sport isn't ongoing, even when it's not active, it still probably captivates our attention in a way nothing else can. So we're going to have to dive into it. Don't go anywhere. We're talking draft. We're talking free agency and some offseason storylines in the NFL on the other side. It's Student of the Game here live from the Go Live Vegas studio.
You do not.
Oh my God. So look.
So I can sit down and say, I'm having a really bad day. I'm sorry. You are watching Midlife Mischief.
How are you with avocados?
I love avocados. Are they a fruit?
If nobody eats, I shut down the whole house.
Oh,
I was
no.
so done. It was over.
I have menopause. We finally did it!
Interesting.
Go Live Vegas Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money. We help you by providing an all in-house production team. Visit our website at golive.vegas.
We just need to forget about everything.
All right, keeping it rolling here from the Go Live Vegas studio on a Friday. It's soon the game. Brett Lawson. We have Aaron behind the boards. We were so excited to get going. I didn't even turn the fan on in the studio before it got going. That's how you know when I'm talking, the state of the NBA. You get a little balmy up in here, get a little that glow. But again, we're excited for a lot of things coming. You've heard me plug the hell out of the app. We're going to continue to plug the hell out of the app. We have a lot of different things in the works for Go Live Vegas. We have live remotes. We have studio-based programming. We have documentary series, film reels, social media, TikTok, everything in between. So go ahead. If you want to be involved, make sure to check us out. You can check us out online. You can check us out on the new app, again, available on Android and through Apple, and of course on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on any kind of device, laptop, tablet, smart TV, you can find us. All right, we're going to show it. We're going to keep showing it. But again, it's simple as that. You can navigate it through just any other app. You have your home tab, which has all your information, a 24/7 feed that connects you to our Twitch channel. You have news and headlines and weather and information. You have different, about features regarding the personalities in the network and the different shows and the podcasts we have in the network. You have a full studio feed for anything going down live or anything remote. But of course, you have the full video archive of all of our podcasts and talk shows as well. So we're so excited. And speaking of that, Raquel and we have an upcoming talk show / podcast, whatever you want to call it, live stream show in the works. And we will actually be giving you a kind of a rough, a soft launch, right? I guess you call it, Aaron. Kind of a soft launch, rough opening type of deal. You could kind of call it our official pilot episode, if you will. So be sure to catch that later in the day. Again, right here on Go Live Vegas, all of our social media platforms and the Go Live Vegas video app. We will be off and running, talking who knows what, because anytime Raquel and I get behind these microphones, it could very much go off the rails. But just stay tuned for that. Again, we have different remotes, different conventions. I mentioned the Diecast Super Convention last year when I was, pondering and prognosticating the state of baseball. Here we are a year later. We've been invited back to do it again. I'll be on the main stage. Aaron will be providing full coverage of that event through Go Live Vegas. So definitely now, again, it seems like we're plugging ourselves a lot here, but for good reason. We're going to promote as much as we can because now is the time we want you to immerse ourselves in our network, in our family, and everything that we are doing. But guys, as I mentioned before the break, it's not February, and it's not the immediate aftermath of the Super Bowl if you don't talk a little NFL offseason. Because the one thing you do once you turn the page on one campaign is immediately look to the head of the next. Now, predominantly, most of the show, last time I was here with you guys, focused on the Seattle Seahawks and what they were able to do, and rightfully so. We have seen Seattle probably serve as the most, maybe not the most dominant, but the most well-rounded and balanced team to win a Super Bowl in the last several years. And in the process, John Schneider, the GM, the way he built this team, which has no shortage of stars, especially on defense. We know they have elite defensive backs, elite pass rushers, elite linebackers. We know they have one of the best receivers in football in Jackson Smith-Njigba. And as the year went on, they got the power running game going with Charbonnet and Walker. Walker, once Charbonnet goes down, he carries the load all the way to a Super Bowl MVP. They don't turn the ball over once. They have phenomenal special teams, kick returns, punts, kicks, everything to help out both their defense and their offense. And you kind of just collectively sit there just like we did, a week ago or 10 days ago in the immediate aftermath of the game, and you think, that's how it's done. And it's been a while since we've seen a team do it like that. And my question is, since Seattle was able to do it in that fashion, since Seattle was able to do it in a way that was, for the most part, relatively quick, and for Seattle to be able to do it in combination, in unison of both the free agent market, bringing in Cooper Kupp, bringing in Big Cat Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence and some of these other guys, while also drafting exceptionally well in the first and second rounds the last few years, right? Bringing in Witherspoon and bringing in all these great players that they have. You could go on and on. And then the chef's kiss, the icing on the cake, to get your quarterback not through the draft, but through free agency. I am legitimately starting to wonder if we will see, like I mentioned in the last segment, football being so cyclical, it evolves every couple of years, both in terms of the in-game dynamics, the X's and O's, and the roster structure. I am wondering if we're going to start to see a change, because for the longest time it was get a quarterback that you draft on the cheap, build around him, right? Keep him for the cheap and give all the skill position players the kitchen sink to keep them happy, even if it's just for 5 minutes. and we will be in the window of contention, and we will have a chance to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. That was the norm for a long time. And I'm not saying it'll go away. But I think if Seattle, if anything, has reminded us is that there are multiple ways to build a championship team. Sam Darnold has reminded us that sometimes it's not about just going to get your quarterback for the cheap and surrounding him with studs. Sometimes instead, it's about building the roster out before you even have that quarterback, moving off of the one that you do have like they did with Geno Smith, and bringing in a guy who played exceptional for Minnesota, but all of a sudden they didn't want him. And you see it a year later, the Vikings with J.D. McCarthy, the Seahawks with Sam Darnold. You don't think teams across the board are taking notes? They're definitely taking notes in terms of how John Schneider builds a team, but there are a lot of good teams out there who, or at least a few, who know what they're doing in the front office, right? Howie Roseman, Brett Veach, Les Snead. There are some good ones. Schneider's in that crop as well. John Lynch for the 49ers. There are certain teams that know how to build an identity in a championship roster, but it's the timing of it all. It's the sequencing of it all. That's why I wonder if things are going to start to change. You can build a contender fast in the NFL. Seattle is defining proof of that. At the same time, concurrently, your window can close every bit as fast. We're starting to wonder if that's the case with Detroit. We were wondering if it was the case with San Francisco until they overachieved with Shanahan this year. We'll have to see if their roster's fully healthy, if that truly is the case. Kansas City, not even in the playoffs. They're the dynasty of this era, and they weren't in it. Baltimore, out in the cold. Buffalo, still great because of Josh Allen, but not the team they were a few years ago when their window seemed a little bit more open. Jacksonville, meanwhile, they get the right coach. They accumulate pieces on offense and defense. Their quarterback plays as well as anybody in there in the back, the final stretch of the season, the back half of the season. And now Jacksonville's relevant. Denver is relevant because they know what they're doing. You're seeing teams build their roster in different ways, whether it be with a quarterback who's already established, whether it be with a quarterback who's brand new. But it seems to be the icing on the cake ultimately is the coach. You have to bring in the right coach. For Seattle, it was a defensive guy. For the Rams, it proved to be an offensive guy. Right? And that was years ago when they brought in McVay. For Shanahan and the Niners, offensive guy. For the Pats, who overachieved because of their defense, who carried an offense who didn't play well, and a year two quarterback who didn't play well in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, but Mike Vrabel and company were good enough to get there. You are seeing teams take multiple approaches because there is not a one-size-fit-all approach to building a contender. There are multiple ways. Now, there are common denominators in terms of what you have to have. You can't do it without a quarterback. That's why the Sam Darnold story is so interesting. You could say, sure, it had to happen once you got to a stacked team like Seattle. Seattle's been talented the last couple of years. They weren't going anywhere with Geno Smith. And Sam Darnold, to his credit, isn't the same player that he was when he was first drafted by the Jets or even went on to Carolina or was a backup in San Francisco. We saw glimpses of it with Kevin O'Connell and Minnesota, and that allowed him to get a job with the Seahawks, a job that now also includes a Super Bowl championship, a ring and a Lombardi trophy, right? So it's easy to kind of look at the sequencing of it all and kind of do this associative property, think, this plus this equals that, or that plus that equals this. But what we were saying is that if you check the boxes from a personnel standpoint and build a balanced team, again, Seattle has studs all over the place, but it's more about getting the right players than the best players. And I wonder if now moving forward in free agency year in and year out when we get to March and the draft year in and year out when we get to April, I wonder if we're going to start seeing teams take that approach. And we're going to start seeing teams who have good rosters, but some uncertainty regarding the quarterback position. Are we going to see teams quickly pivot off of them? But instead of bringing one in the draft, we bring one in cheaply through free agency we could get in no time. And now next thing you know, not only are we Super Bowl champions, we're blowing everyone's minds in terms of how good we look doing it. That's why I'm interested in this offseason. Because in college football, we talked about it. There's a different way to do it now. Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers just proved it. And it made the college football realm of competition, the landscape of competition, that much more intriguing. Even if Indiana dominated all year long, and kicked ass against damn good teams on their way to the national championship. It was more so how they did it, the why, the how that went into it that made it that much sweeter of a story. Seattle's the same thing. So now the question is, who's next? Because there are so many good quarterbacks out there, but you don't think Joe Burrow would like some of that defensive support or some of that balance that Seattle showed? You don't think Josh Allen would like that? Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson? Huh? And those are just all AFC teams. Right now, we're probably at a point where the NFC collectively, in terms of personnel, has more well-rounded teams than the AFC does, even though the AFC probably has the edge in quarterbacks. But when you look at those quarterbacks, as solidified as they are and as elite as they are, that's what separates this from basketball. It's not enough. Josh Allen can be Superman. Not enough. And Drake May doesn't have to be Superman. It is enough. Sam Darnold doesn't have to be Superman. It is enough. Bo Nix, it's working. Doesn't mean it won't revert back to the norm where you have to have a true blue chip stud of a quarterback, right? Like, it could go back that way because football's cyclical. But look at how much football's exploded in its evolution, right? So much, it became so spread out throughout the course of the 2010s. Now it's becoming more, right? It's shuffling back to the interior. We're seeing teams run 13 personnel, 3 tight ends, power running game. Fullbacks are starting to come back in the equation. Motion is still being utilized, but motion's being utilized to set up your blocking and your running game more than anything else. We're seeing teams with these, 4 receiver sets or even 5 receiver sets in an empty backfield. Now it's being condensed down, squeezing down, being tightened down because the game is going through a change. What safeties are doing, the single high, that's not a thing anymore. Now we'll play 2 high. We'll take the top of a defense. We're essentially just playing deep zone all the time, and we're eliminating the deep ball. If you want to beat us, you're going to have to beat us underneath, either finding holes in the zone or when we run man, hoping you have the superior athletes. It's all chess, and it always has been. But while that much remains to be true, I think we sometimes get a little bit lazy, even in our positions as fans. My position as someone in the media, we sometimes think that, if this team did it this way, that is the new norm. It's not necessarily being the new norm. It's showing a new method. Because we saw Kansas City win back-to-back Super Bowls essentially off of defense and with no offensive identity. We saw the Philadelphia Eagles win it with a power running game. And we've seen now Seattle win it by basically just not having any weaknesses. There are multiple paths to the pot of gold. And I want, or at least wonder, and kind of subconsciously want in the back of my mind, I want that to continue because it makes for a more fun, it makes for a more enjoyable product. It's more fun to watch when there are different methods being thrown out there to succeed. And that's what brings me now to the draft, because I think the draft is kind of going to reflect that in microcosm. Free agency is always going to be the same, right? Especially now, Tyreek Hill's a free agent. You're going to wonder, there's a lot of teams that need receiving help and a big playmaker receiver. You have to wonder, how much does he have left to offer? But at the same time, that could be a big, big move, right? And we'll do a whole free agency special. We'll have Kel on and maybe a few of my other buddies on that, like we've done in the past. And we'll keep our thumb on all that, and we'll gauge all that. But the draft, to me, is really interesting in microcosm because I feel it's almost a reflection of where we are. Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick. He is going to be QB1, the first quarterback taken, and the first player taken. Initially, we thought maybe if the Raiders have something up their sleeve. No, it's clear as day now. Spytek and Brady are going to address the quarterback position. But you have to wonder, in terms of the sack to drop back ratio. Does he sometimes get a little frantic when pressured? Does he hold on the ball too long? He's athletic, but is he necessarily twitchy or fluid enough in and out of the pocket? Can he step up, shuffle, slide, and really work against the rush like we see some of these really talented young quarterbacks do? There are going to be concerns and red flags about Mendoza like there are any prospect. But given how Mendoza did it this year, his Heisman campaign, ending it all by beating a damn good Miami Hurricanes team to win the national championship, you also have to remember that that's all null and void now, right? Joe Burrow did the same thing, but Joe Burrow was viewed as a blue chip prospect. Trevor Lawrence Same type of thing. His last game wasn't the national championship, but he won it as a true freshman. He never won the Heisman, but he was invited multiple times. He was a blue chip type of guy. Andrew Luck, generational talent, blue chip type of player. Fernando Mendoza is not that. But that also doesn't mean that just because he's not that, he's not worthy of being the number one pick, right? Sometimes guys are overdrafted because of the circumstances. The Raiders desperately need a quarterback. He is going to be the guy. So no, he may not be the surefire can't miss type of prospect that a Trevor Lawrence or a Joe Burrow was, or he may not have the upside of someone like a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson who you think with time they could be the best player in the league. But that doesn't mean he's not up for the job. And we will only know until he's out there, because that's another part of the current football pattern, the current culture, the pattern, the way of doing things. The days of a clipboard and a ball cap on the sideline are done. Why waste time? My New York Giants are a defining example of that. 3 weeks in, Russell Wilson's not doing it for you. You got to get Jackson Dart out there. Drake May, put him out there in his rookie year, took a lot of licks. What happens in year two? He's a runner-up for MVP in the closest MVP race we've seen in God knows how long. Caleb Williams was an erratic mess in year one. Give him Ben Johnson in year two. Look what's happening. Bo Nix was schemed to success by Sean Payton in his rookie year. In year two, look at the command, by comparison, that Bo Nix had of that offense and some of the throws he was making with some of the accuracy, because you get that rookie learning curve out of the way. That's what's going to be important for Mendoza and the Raiders. That's why it's going to be interesting to see if they help him out at all with the offensive line, because if there's one thing he doesn't do well, it's handle pressure. And that's one thing that the Raiders let up a whole lot of, both in terms of pass protection and the run blocking, because we know Ashton Jeanty could be a stud if you give him a little help up front. So, again, it seems like it's going to be a work in progress and quite the process. But like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you could turn around fast in the NFL. If Mendoza actually is the guy, and you could bring in another guard or a tackle through free agency, maybe find a guy in the draft. In 2 years, the Raiders can look drastically different. Clint Kubiak is now at the helm. We saw what he did with Sam Darnold in Seattle. Until proven otherwise, I'm going to believe he can do it with Fernando Mendoza. Much different. He's dealing with a veteran quarterback in Darnold, and you don't have the Jackson Smith, the Jigbas, and the talented pieces all around you. But the Raiders ultimately now have an offensive-minded guy at the helm. They're going to have a young quarterback, a year two running back. They have a disgruntled defensive end. But as much as I love Max Crosby's not really going to move the needle for him moving forward. You want the Brock Bowers and the Genties and the Mendozas and the offensive linemen. That's what needs to be the focal point moving forward. And we're going to have a lot of boom or bust talk with Mendoza. And anytime you go number one, it's going to be volatile. But this year, 2026, isn't going to be about Mendoza being rookie of the year or instantly putting the Raiders in the playoffs. No, it's going to be about laying the foundation, because that's what the Pats have done. That's what the Bears have done. That's what the Broncos have done. I'm not going to get too overzealous in the Giants, but the Giants have done that to a degree, and now they're bringing in Harbaugh. The Jaguars did the same thing. Lawrence struggled, but you saw what that front office has been doing recently. The defensive players that they brought in, Trayvon Walker, who was number one overall, he started to come into his own. ETN, these receivers, right? Like Brian Thomas Jr., little bit of a sophomore slump, but still a stud talent. Like, you could get it together rather quickly in just a couple of drafts. So to say Mendoza is going to be, get the crap beat out of him, or he's not going to be talented enough to get the job done in year one, that's not the goal anyway. And if they overachieve, great, but we can't count for that to happen. So usually that's a pleasant surprise. That was the case with the New England Patriots in year one with Mike Vrabel, and year two under Drake May. And we saw the Bears go on a run with Caleb Williams in year two and Ben Johnson in year one, right? The whole idea of a quote-unquote process or a timeline has always been foolish, because there is no clear-cut set allotted amount of time to determine this. What you do with the drafts and the free agency periods allotted to you will determine that. Not just the play of Mendoza, but the simultaneous decisions of Spytek and Brady. And I bring this up in contrast to what Seattle has done, because it was just a few years ago where Seattle had no identity either, where Seattle had nothing to hang its hat on at all. especially in the post-Russell Wilson years where they really didn't have much going for them. And it seemed like the match with Pete Carroll and everyone else had run its course. The Legion of Boom was long gone. It felt like it would be forever until Seattle got back. And here we are. You could turn it around quick. And the way you turn it around is knowing what you have to do, not what everyone else does. Addressing the holes that you need. Everyone's so caught up. Oh, since Dante Moore, he had a rough going against Indiana. He drops out. He's not coming in. He's not coming out in April. So it's pretty much just a Mendoza-Ty Simpson race. Yeah, we get it. That's not a particularly strong quarterback class, especially with some of the recent ones we have seen. But that's okay because this draft is so strong in other departments, in other areas, in the skill positions, in the backfield, Jeremiah Love, in the secondary, right? Caleb Downs. Cardell Tate and Jordan Tyson as perimeter weapons on the outside. You have receivers. Love is as good of a running back prospect we have seen in quite some time. He really is, or at least probably the best since Bijan Robinson, which wasn't that long ago, but we've seen a lot of running backs come and go since then, especially at that position. Love can be an absolute star, a franchise-changing player. Look at the defense. David Bailey, Reuben Bain, some of these linebackers and edge rushers and front seven players, you got guys who instantly feel like they could go and be a Nick Emenwari or an Ernest Jones or a Devin Witherspoon like we saw with Seattle, right? Or Braden Fisk and Jared Verse for the Rams making an instant impact. Of course they are. They're that good. This is the type of draft where you want to get those players so you could build your foundation and you can get the ball rolling maybe even before you find your quarterback. Because let's be real, this isn't the year you're probably going to find him anyway unless you're drafting particularly high. And once the Raiders get up there and are on the clock and Goodell announces the pick, the best quarterback's going to be gone anyway. So now what, it's going to be a race for Ty Simpson? No, that's not going to be the narrative. That's not going to be the main focal point or the talking point of this draft. It's who are bringing in these elite talents to initially be in the ancillary because they're not quarterbacks, but snap your fingers and flash forward a couple years, they're no longer in the ancillary. They are the reason you are there. And then it becomes dependent on you to find the quarterback that could get you over the hump and make the quarterback the final piece. That's what Seattle did. And again, I'm not saying you can't go with the more recent formula of getting the quarterback first. But as of late, I mean, look at the teams who've done that. It's not panning out particularly well, even with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow being the stars of the league. Seattle got the hardware. Seattle hit pay dirt first. So who is going to be the team to mimic that formula if that formula has some staying power? Because I find it hard to believe it doesn't, given the balance, given the personnel, and given the fact they found the right quarterback who didn't need to be a top 5 quarterback. I'm not saying it's going to be the norm, but you could clearly win that way. So I cannot wait throughout the rest of this offseason to see, and it's a long one because like I talked about before we started the segment, I mean, we could talk about anything right now. I open with the NBA. You have Olympic coverage ongoing. You have hockey ongoing. Baseball's right in front of our faces, but we could make this whole show about the NFL offseason because nothing moves the needle like the National Football League. And the offseason in many ways can be compelling as interesting as the regular season or the postseason. It really is because you are seeing all of the assembly. You're seeing how the sausage is made. And then the NFL, that is particularly interesting, probably more so than AAA prospects in baseball or guys in the NBA who are back and forth in the G League, hockey prospects who are great talents but may take a few years because of the learning curve, right? NFL, it's set up for you to get guys in and to shine with them immediately if the identity and the philosophy is there in place. So I just can't wait to see how or if that trajectory continues, and if it does, how much longevity or staying power it does have. Because it seems like I said, every time we think we have the league figured out, something happens, evolution, some may even say it devolves, and it goes back, and it cycles back. But it is always changing. It is always fluid, and that's what makes it so fun to analyze and prognosticate. And that's going to continue to be the case. So I just want to touch base on that. We'll do the whole March free agency period as we get closer, and we'll do a full-blown draft special. I'm still thinking about that draft night live stream. I know I've talked about that with Aaron. We still have that in our back pocket we may have to get to. But again, this is what makes it fun. Because right when you turn the page on the 2025 campaign, you can immediately start thinking, what did we learn from that year, and how will it impact what we see in 2026? Both from our standpoint as people who are spectators, and, of course, the people who are directly involved. So it's going to be fun. It really is. And, you know, as far as spectatorship is concerned, as I wrap things up here, the Winter Olympics are always funny because so many people talk about, you know, they don't have the prestige the Summer Olympics have. They may not have the storylines of the well-known athletes or the general appeal for the audience across the board. And that may be true. But what I love about the Winter Olympics is that while maybe the Summer Olympics has more in terms of the big sports that I'm intrigued about and in terms of particular athletes I follow, right, the big marquee names, the big marquee sports, you have more of that going for you for the Summer Olympics. But I think the Winter Olympics across the board have more surefire entertainment. I think there is more stuff to see in the Winter Olympics that isn't considered quote-unquote missable the way it is in the Summer Olympics. The upper echelon of the Summer Olympics are going to take the cake. No doubt about it. Those are big, big sports with big, big brands and endorsements and all that. And the athletes have a lot of, you know, promotion and clout heading into the games. In some ways, the winter athletes don't. Now, again, you have Lindsey Vonn. She gets hurt. She gets hurt on her first run. But the fact she's even performing to begin with or competing to begin with is mega, right? Ilya Malinin, he's a stud. He's like the future of figure skating. He takes a tumble. He falls. Disappointing performance, right? Michaela Schifrin, a little slow out of the gate to get going. Chloe Kim, dominant, but at the same time, you know, Chloe Kim, as great as she is, she's still truly building her brand. She's been stellar the past 3 Olympics, but she's not quite as solidified as a Shaun White, right? As much as I love Chloe Kim, there are some people out there who may not know who she is in the same way that we knew about Shaun White or even know about Michaela Schifrin, Lindsey Vonn, so on and so forth. So there is an element of branding and notoriety that they just don't have. But in terms of entertainment, in terms of intrigue, the Winter Olympics, to me, not only always deliver, I think they may more so consistently deliver than the Summer Games. Now, the Paris Games in 2024 were phenomenal. Maybe the best Olympics I've ever seen. The way they were covered on TV was brilliant. But NBC is now using that same formula, balancing the tape delay, balancing the live events to where it's a perfect type of experience for anybody. If you're busy during the day, you can catch the recap at night. If you caught it during the day, you don't have to worry about the recap at night. You could watch something else. You could go watch basketball. You could go watch NHL hockey, right? You could watch something else because you already saw everything you needed to. The coverage is dialed in. NBC knows what they're doing. And we've been able to catch everything at the 2026 Milan Cortina Games. And as we, get ready to close the book on with closing ceremonies on Sunday, what do we have? The best sport in all of the Winter Olympics, hockey, to really take us across the finish line. Hillary Knight, the captain, 16 years she's been doing this. 16 years. Sochi, Pyeongchang, Beijing, and now Milan Cortina. She sends it to overtime. They win it in overtime after she ties it up in the heroics. And next thing you know, it's as good of a gold medal win in any sport you will ever see. Thrilling fashion. Probably the best game you could possibly ask for in Olympic hockey, period, men or women's. And it's a USA-Canada rivalry, a rivalry that we may be able to get to see again when it's all said and done on Sunday. The last thing we get, USA versus Canada, in before the closing ceremonies? Are you kidding me? And we know what they've done before. I'm not saying it's going to be 2010 Vancouver with Sid the Kid putting it in at the buzzer or whatever. 2010. There you go, Vancouver. It blurs together. So 2014 was TJ Oshie in Sochi against the Russians. That was awesome. Those are monumental moments. We haven't really had one in men's hockey as of late, right? And the Canadians have gotten the upper hand. But Aaron, remember when we were talking about it here in the studio, the 4 Nations tournament, how awesome that was? And the fights and the intensity and the booing and the national anthems. You're going to get that carried over on Sunday if they go at it again. And America just dominated early today. I was watching it before coming in the studio. I was catching on my way into the studio and saw the fun. That's what Aaron came over and was, throwing his phone in my face about. They whooped ass against Slovakia. Jack Hughes has been dominant. He put 2 more in between the pipes tonight. Today, they win 6-2. Like, this is awesome. It's pretty cool when we're gearing up for the NHL to really get going and the Stanley Cup playoffs and the countdown to that, the race to that. But we also get world-class women's hockey and men's hockey through the greatest rivalry in hockey, USA and Canada. I'm hooked. I can't wait. There's not a better way to wrap up the games. I know the focus of this was obviously the state of the NBA and the NFL offseason. But, I mean, come on. There's so many sports talk shows out there who gloss over the Olympics year in and year out, summer or winter. I never get why. It's perfect fodder, especially at a time when, headlines seem a little bit short, a little bit limited. It's like content on a silver platter for you, the Summer and Winter Olympics, and too many sports talk hosts ignored entirely. I'm not going to do it. I could go on and on. You saw, what's her name, Lou, in the skating last night. She was incredible. What a performance to win gold. Like, I'm not going to gloss over it. I mean, we have to go. We're wrapping up here. So I save it to the back burner for the last part of the show, the last segment. But at the same time, it's worth the mentioning, and it warrants the discussion because at the end of the day, we want entertainment in our sports. Yes, the narratives and the anecdotes and the championships and the ring culture and the debate and yada, yada, that is all secondary because none of that happens if we don't get that initial entertainment. And man, oh man, have these Olympic Games been entertaining, and I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. It's about to wrap up on Sunday, but again, what better way to wrap up? We need it. USA and Canada. I mean, I'm not to overlook Finland playing Canada, but we need USA, Canada on Sunday. May the best team win. Throw it to the closing ceremonies. Another Olympics in the book, but Olympic hockey, time and time again, delivers. Aaron, you were in Canada when it happened, but you'll be the first to admit, I mean, this is trivia. What is the greatest moment in the history of American sports? Yeah, I'm thinking Olympic hockey. There you go. But that's what it is. The greatest moment. This is where you need a microphone. Sorry for that audience. I keep forgetting he doesn't have one. But the greatest moment in the history of this country came in Lake Placid in 1980 when a bunch of kids beat, at the time, the greatest hockey team to ever live. That is immortalized for a reason. That is a landmark of our pop culture for a reason. And where did it all go down? The Winter Olympics. At a time when they were amateurs. Now we have pros. We have our own Jack Eichel out here whooping ass. You have Hughes whooping ass. You have all these great players. Kachuk, who we love. Like, you have all these great players who are big-time names with their own brands attached to them in the NHL, and they are representing the Stars and Stripes. They are representing the Maple Leaf, and everything about it is freaking awesome. I had to get on my hockey high horse because I am jacked. But with that being said, fun stuff today. Fun stuff all around for Go Live Vegas. Again, the theme of the show, aside from, ongoing diatribes about the state of the National Basketball Association, the app. We've used this camera angle a lot. We're going to continue to use it. This is, a limited view of what you'll get. But if you want to get a better view, go check it out. Subscribe, download, like on all of our platforms. But make sure you get this app. Android, Apple will be available at all of them. We're going to have our final, or at least most recently updated version available soon. So be sure to check that out. Again, all of our live streams. It'll instantly take you to the feed. It'll notify you when any live shows are beginning, any recorded podcasts, archived episodes, show profiles, information about the personalities, written content, news articles, headlines, weather, anything you could possibly want on the Go Live Vegas app is now a go on that app. So be sure to go check it out. And of course, you could like, subscribe, follow us on all of our social media digital platforms so you could join in on the fun. And this was a fun one. Again, coming up about 30 minutes, Aaron? Raquel and I will be doing our rough opening, soft launch type of, or hard, I lose track of them. It's a millennial, or what is it? It's like a Gen Alpha dating term, right? The hard launch or soft launch, whatever. But it's going to be a soft launch, a nice little rough opening that we think will give you guys a general idea of exactly what that show is going to be about. And again, we'll continue to plug this awesome app more. So get on the app, Follow us on all our platforms. Be sure to stay in the loop as we push forward in 2026 for a lot of big things to come here on the Go Live Vegas brand. We appreciate it. We thank you. Enjoy the rest of the Olympic coverage, and we'll catch you next time right here when we do it all over again from the Go Live Vegas studio on Studio the Game. Have a good one,
We
everybody.
need to forget about everything. Put away our problems. Get along with each other and